In this tutorial, we're going to look at, can an acidic diet create an organ injury or create ill health within the body and damage organs in some way? We're going to answer sort of such questions as, first of all, is there such thing as an acid or an alkaline diet? Can the body buffer, and how does the body buffer acids? Can acid accumulate? And then finally, we'll look at some of the symptoms of organ injury and what that looks like as a symptom or as an effect of a poor diet. If you find this content useful, you've learned something, please do hit the like button below, hit the subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll get notified when I release more. If you do have any questions and comments about anything that I talk about in this tutorial or about nutrition in general, stick it in the comments below. I'll either answer it in the comments or I might catalogue some of them and create specific tutorials based on those questions so I can answer them to give it in a little bit more detail if it needs it. So question number 1 is there such thing as an acid or an alkaline diet? Well, what we've got here is a range of different diets. So these are all different diets here, and obviously you can see what they are. So these are the study participants, and given fruits and vegetables, that means Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, vegan diet. I'm not going to go into what diets they are, but just to say it's a range of diets with a range of different makeup with foods. So you've got meat and seafood, fruit, vegetables, fruits, grains, dairy, oils. Then what you've got is basically a total score down here of what is called their PRAL. And their PRAL is a potential renal acid load. So certain foods create some sort of acidic residue, if you will. And then what has to happen is the kidneys have to go and, well, the kidneys don't have to go anywhere, but the kidneys have to remove that. And with regards to the load that's on it, basically, the higher the score, the higher the load. So what you can see here, the different scores that have been given based on the different loads. And like again, I'm not a vegan, so please don't say I'm promoting a vegan diet. But with regards to a vegan diet, obviously that's going to stay as a 0. But what you can get are different scores and different ratios within that, and that could be similar throughout here. So again, Mediterranean diet, you can get different scores and ratios depending on what people do. So it's not, if you eat a Mediterranean diet, that you have a low load, because you can manipulate the foods, you can manipulate the diet with the foods that you eat by increasing them, and then that will have a certain acidic load or a certain alkaline load. So what we can take from this is that there is a range of diets. And is there such thing as an acid or an alkaline diet? Well, essentially, if you look at it, say this is an alkaline diet, this is an acid diet, then no, there is no such thing. Because you have to think of it more on a spectrum of going more towards alkaline or more towards acid. And then you can start to say, I'm eating a more alkaline diet or a more acid diet, or however you want to describe it. But that, in some respects, is how you need to go about describing it. And then diets high in PRAL, so diets with a high renal acid load, induce a low-grade metabolic state, and I've talked about this in previous videos, which is associated with the development of various complications, as it's said. And then we can then talk about what we're going to talk about in the last slide, which are the symptoms of that. So next it comes to, how does the body buffer the acid? So we know that certain diets induce an acidic response within the body. So what does the body do about that? And obviously the higher, the more of this is going to be used, which is going to put more stress on certain organs and certain minerals and materials. So we only have a certain amount of them, and our body can only work at a certain rate to remove them. So the higher the load, the more effect it's going to have on the body. So the lower, in some respects, is the better. So you've got sequestration, which is essentially the removal of, or the separation of. Then you've got a buffering, which is basically combining with. And then you've got, so you've got bicarbonates here, and you've then got minerals within bones and things like that. Then you've got a neutralization, and you've got NAD here, which combines with H+ to create NADH. Then you've got NEAP, which is the net endogenous acid production. And then you've got the excretion, which you've got glutamine metabolism. You've got the kidneys, which again aids in the excretion, titratable acids, and again, you've got kidney excretion here. So all we need to really understand from that is our body has ways of removing it. But what we do have to understand, which is what we're going to talk about next, is that it can only work at a certain rate, and our body can only remove so much. So when we talk about can it accumulate, there are sort of different variables that that come into question. And those two different variables is, number one, the amount of acid that's coming in and the ability of the body to remove it. So what we've got here is a low acid diet and a high acid diet. So that's the amount here, is the amount that's coming in. So you've got a low amount and you've got a high amount. Then what you've got, normal GFR, is essentially, it's a glomerular filtration rate. And that's essentially what that's trying to say, is how well the kidneys are working. So when you've got normal GFR, which is how well it's working, you can see that there is an accumulation via this. So you've got acid accumulation here. And you've got a plasma bicarbonate, and you can see the normal range here. So it's within that, but although it drops, it's still within the normal range. So you've got, a normal filtration rate can handle a high acid diet. But what starts to happen, the higher the acid goes, or a high acid diet, but as then the kidneys don't work as well, you can then see it accumulates more and then it drops outside of the normal range. So can acid accumulate? Yes, it can, but it depends on the different variables. So if we've got well-functioning kidneys, and what I will start to say on well-functioning kidneys is if we keep it under this high sort of acid load, if you will, then that is going to play its part in diminishing the ability of the kidneys to work, because essentially you're going to burn it out. A bit like if you sit in a car and just put your foot on the accelerator, eventually the engine is going to burn out because it's not getting that downtime to recover because of the high acid load that's continually coming in. So we have to understand that with regards to can it accumulate. It can, but it depends on how much is going in and how well the organs are working to remove it. And finally, what can be some of the symptoms of organ injury? Well, what we've got here is without reduced GFR and with reduced GFR, which is, as I mentioned before, GFR is essentially how well the kidneys are working, close bracket. So you can start to see here some of the symptoms. So you've got a systemic overall effect. So you've got increased mortality. You've got insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, decreased bone health, increased catabolic state, decreased muscle mass. And again, it's not all about the amount that's going in. It's about the ability. So you've got to get that balance right. You've got an increased risk of chronic kidney disease. There's the whole list there. And then again, you've got the systemic overall effect and the kidneys here. But this is with a reduced GFR. So you've got tissue inflammation, fibrosis, vascular endothelial cell inflammation, oxidative stress, so on and so forth. And all of these. So what we do have to understand is that a high acid diet can have an effect on the organs and on the body, and it will downregulate them. It will injure them. Again, I'm not talking about an injury as in a box. So you've got injured over here and then non-injured over here. Again, we've got to think about it on a continuum of, let's just say, health over here and ill health over here. And with the foods that you're eating, you're constantly sort of on that, sort of moving from there or moving over there. Depending on what you eat, you're moving over there. Depending on what you eat, you're moving over there. But if you give yourself the right recovery, you can move from over here back to here and towards the, so on and so forth. So again, it's not an injury that is, right, you're in a box over here and you're injured, or you're only healthy and you're in a box over here and you can never get injured, sort of thing. It's not. That's what I'm talking about. There's this sliding scale and continuum that we're talking about. So to summarise what we've talked about, and in some respects go some way to answering the question, can an acidic diet injure your organs? It can, but it depends. And it depends on essentially two things, which is the amount that's going in, which is the acidic load, and then how well the body can deal with that load. And again, if that load is high and chronically high, then eventually the organs are going to fail, which is where then the injuries start to come in. So again, we have to understand it from that perspective, because the body has been given a buffering system to manage acids that come in. But what it can't deal with is high loads over a long period of time, because that essentially just downgrades and diminishes how well the organs can work to remove and buffer these acids that are going in. So can an acidic diet injure organs? Yes, but it depends on a few variables. If you found this information and content useful, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon, you'll be notified when I release my next tutorial. Also, leave comments and questions below, happy to answer them. Even if there's certain questions, if you'd like to hear more on this topic, let me know. If there are any other topics you'd like me to talk about, please do leave it down in the comment section below. Many thanks for watching. My name is Chris. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.